This episode of Gators Breakdown is brought to you by MyBookie. MyBookie will match your first deposit by 50% all the way up to $1,000. Head to mybookie.ag and use promo code Gators to activate the offer. Bet, win, get paid at MyBookie.
Gators Breakdown, the Gators fan podcast, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters, and you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. And joining me on this episode to preview the Florida State Seminoles is former Seminoles fullback James Coleman. You can find him on the radio here in Jacksonville as well on 1010XL and 92.5 on the Sports Den with his co-host Denny Thompson. Great insight there from those guys. But yeah, James will join me here on this episode to give a deep dive into the Florida State Seminoles with the coaching search and this year's team as well. So a lot of stuff to look forward to when talking to James about these Florida State Seminoles and the game coming up Saturday night between the Gators and the Seminoles. Before we get there, remember you can find Gators Breakdown on news4jax.com/Gators Breakdown. You'll find all the Gators Breakdown episodes there, as well as News4Jax coverage of the Gators. Also listen and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, all those avenues out there is how you can get Gators Breakdown when using those services. Go out there, please share, rate, and review the show. And on social media, follow Gators Breakdown on Twitter and Facebook at Gators Breakdown. Also, don't forget a News4Jax exclusive, Talking with Troop. Former Gators tight end Ben Troop joins me once a week this season on News4Jax to give his thoughts on the Gators, and that'll be out around the same time as this podcast as well. So you can go to news4jax.com, catch that, news4jax.com/Gators Breakdown to catch me and Ben Troop talking about senior day, senior night for the Gators, and Ben Troop when he was a senior and his favorite Florida State memories as well. We'll talk about all of that on the next edition of Talking with Troop. Three-year starter at fullback for the Seminoles between 2002 and 2005 and co-host of the Sports Den on 1010XL and 92.5 here in Jacksonville. James Coleman joins me here on Gators Breakdown to give us a preview of these Florida State Seminoles. James, it's been an eventful year for you, man.
Oh, man. Definitely 2 years that or 21 games that I'm going to choose to forget. After we move in a different direction. But this past season, I guess it's better than 2018, but still bad.
Right, and before we get into the preview of the game, of course, I'm sure a lot of Seminole fans feel the same way. The attention seems to be more on the coaching search than the actual game, and us Gator fans have been there late in the season when the coaching search is going on. That's kind of the headline right now. For what you can share, what's the latest on the coaching search as we head into the last week in November, heading into this Florida game?
I mean, right now, nobody really knows what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of guys, or I guess me included earlier, who have very good sources, and either your source is burned or you don't really know what's going on. But, there's obviously the rumors about Stoops, and the school continues to have we're going in that direction, we're not going in that direction, we're going in that direction relationship. And I know Florida fans have dealt with Bob on this level as well, cold feet at the altar type thing. But a lot of the names that are being thrown around are, when you read the article, they make sense as a standpoint that you would want that coach. Like a James Franklin, you would definitely want James Franklin. You would want a Matt Campbell. You would want a PJ Fleck. You would want Mike Norvell. But I think it's more of any of us saying, like, hey, we're grasping at straws, because the search committee has done a pretty good job of redirecting information. I made a bold statement about I guess going right after or during the bye week, that was a rookie mistake on my part. I'll never do that again. But I still, trying to make a prediction on a coach, which is the only thing more sketchy or wider than trying to predict where 17 to 19-year-olds are going to attend 4 years. Is trying to figure out what 40 to 50-year-olds are going to do with multi-million-dollar contracts. So, but every fan is like, when are we going to hire our coach? When are we going to hire our coach? When it really hasn't been that long in the grand scheme of things. It just feels like it because you talk about it. It's constant updates on the major sites and even mine, Fifth Quarter. There are people who have ends or think they have ends, and they're constantly communicating and discussing it. When it could very well be the guy who's the head coach now. I think we missed a great opportunity for PR, where we should have just said it's an open search nationwide, with Odell Haggins being one of the front runners, and he has a 4 to 5 game interview to 3 to 4 game interview where he could possibly win the job. Because if the sun aligns and the stars and the moons and it's a perfect day and James Blackman's girlfriend, wrote him a nice letter. Jordan Trash girlfriend broke up with him like in the worst possible way, and he can't play well, and we come out and we perform at a high level to win. Odell should be considered. Odell, that would be one of the greatest turnarounds that I've seen, to go 3-0 when everything was indicating that you might lose. You should lose to Boston College. So that's kind of where we're at. We're at big hopes, big aspirations, but the guy who's always been there might be the best person.
Well, speaking of him, Willie Taggart gets fired after the Miami game, and Haggins takes over. What's been the biggest change you've seen in these last couple games since he's become the interim head coach?
The biggest change is how things are run, and it's easy to say it's for the better because you won 2 games, albeit HBCU, and one of the worst defenses in the nation with Boston College. That was hobbled with a backup quarterback and, things like that, but you still won. But I will say the approach that they've taken in practice is one that's more familiar to most people from the state of Florida. A much more intense type of practice. A Willie Taggart practice outside of the dancing is filled with individual periods and half lines, and it's supposed to be a lot of teaching involved. Because of how up-tempo and how fast-paced that you want it to be, you want to make sure the guys understand it. It's more of a hardball approach, and the hardballs have more of an NFL approach. It's great when it works. When it doesn't work, it looks crazy. It looks bad. Odell only knows the Bowden way and some of the Jimbo Fisher way, where you have less individual periods, but it's more live action. So like when I was there at Florida State, your first actual true 5 periods of practice were individual and like individual pass pro, handoff, swing screen game, things like that. And then you went to team inside drill. So you're simulating run game with the scout team to 7-on-7 to team 11-on-11 with the scout team. So then you go from there to team inside versus the defense. So now you're actually banging. Then you're banging on 7-on-7. Then you're banging on 11-on-11. And you're getting more live, active, more physical reps, which in theory produces a more physical football team. Again, that's a theory, but that's what it looks like. And Odell is a consummate Florida State legend. He's on the OG. So players at least can adopt and respect that a little bit more than somebody who's from the outside. Like you know for a fact Odell will do nothing that hinders the program. Whereas it is only about the program based upon how he's done for years. Now, with Tag, maybe not so much. The other side of it is this guy played in this uniform at a high level and was a part of the dynasty, was a part of building the dynasty. Excuse me. So it just comes different from Odell. And we all talk to Odell. So whereas guys felt like they couldn't come back with that, I personally never felt that way. I always came back. I was in the back chilling in the meeting rooms and the coaching rooms with people. That's how I get a lot of the information I get because I know everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But bottom line is people felt like the rumor was that Tag didn't want guys to come back. So whether it's true or not, the perception is reality. But the one person that we've always all been able to call on the phone is Odell. So Odell bridges the gap. The kids respect it. And he's just like, if you've ever, I know it's tough because the rivalry and everything, but like somebody that, like, if you always do your, like, I respect Spurs. I like the throwing the visor down and a lot of those stuff. There's some guys that I've grown to know that I like. We'll talk trash during this week, but I've grown to like. Like Odell is the person. If I was telling a fan of another school, that's a guy that you really, really just like. If you hate him, you're taking this rivalry just a little bit too serious. Like, he's a guy, like, when you talk to him, he's like talking to your dad. Like, he's a father figure. He's a cool dude. Like, he's just going to cut it straight. Now, granted, I say all that, but Odell really embodies the rivalry, too. I've seen, J-Rob, I think, was one of the guys, was one of the coaches up at, the ODB coach, right? That's up at, with Champ in South Carolina?
Yeah, James Robinson.
Yeah. So when they
Tavares Robinson.
T-Rob,
yeah.
My bad. Yeah. So when they first took that job, they were at the Nike Coach of the Year clinic, and this is the Odell story. So I'm coming in, and all I hear is James, and I'm looking, I'm like, that sounds like Dale, and I didn't know Jimbo Fisher and the whole coaching staff was coming to speak. So Odell comes over, gives me this bear hug, cracks my spine, and all that stuff. And we're chopping it up. We're having a catch-up conversation. Like, I ain't seen Dale in like 3-4 years. So I'm talking to my coach. T-Rob comes over there because he sees Odell and doesn't know the rivalry. He comes over and says, hey, what's up, coach? How you doing? And I promise you, Odell stops talking to me, looks at him and says, why are you in the conversation? And I'm like, he's like, man, it's just a rivalry, during the game, but after the game good. Says no. And then he walks away. Mind you, me and Odell aren't done talking. So Odell walked away from me and T-Rob, like I did something. And it's just, but he don't mean nothing by that. It was just, in the spirit of competition. But again, Odell's one of my favorite people, and he's somebody that you want to cheer for whether you're a rival or not.
All right, we'll run through the Seminoles team right quick and what's been going on this season. Of course, Higgins met with the media this week and didn't really want to spill too much on the quarterback situation. If you had to say, is it Blackman or Hornibrook? You brought up Blackman earlier. See the guy who's going to trot out there for the Seminoles Saturday night?
I believe it will be James Blackman. And the reason why I believe it will be James Blackman is because he provides a threat that Hornibrook just doesn't provide. And if you go back and you look, and here's the thing about a Grantham defense is they're going to be aggressive and fast, and he's got corners and safeties that can play man, that he believes you can't out-athlete him. So what he's going to do is he's going to jam, he's going to press, he's not going to play off, and he's going to dare us to beat them deep. And that's a weakness of Hornibrook. So if you look at the Miami film, Hornibrook was not able to get rid of the deep ball. There were times, and not even just the traditional deep ball where people think like a 9 route where you just go where you go 4 verts. I mean deep slants or digs. Like there's a play in the Miami game where Cameron Terry is wide ass open with his waving his hand in the air like throw it to. And it's not a matter of if he saw him or not. I just believe Hornibrook doesn't have the arm strength to be able to zip it in there like he needs to be able to. And that's kind of one of his weaknesses. Now, if you play back on us, like Boise State, a lot of the other teams that we played, like Virginia that we lost to, I think Alex Hornibrook would have probably been a better choice there because they feared that. So you could throw the quicker route, the check down. Hornibrook's there all day for that. But Blackman is better at that. Blackman also isn't a great runner, but he's more willing to run than Hornibrook. That being said, neither look really, really good. And that's why when people ask why I'm such a critic of Brown, is his quarterback room doesn't look good. Again, in comparison, right, to UF's quarterback room, Felipe Franks looked much improved. But when Franks went down, you actually looked like you improved with Trask. So that means there's some development going on. And then even when Emory goes in, it still looks good. Whereas when you see FSU quarterbacks, it's not just that they have different styles. They just look like completely, they're really bad at what they're bad at. There's not even something where they've actually progressed. James Blackman's ability to throw deep is negated by his unwillingness to throw the check down. And he's not gotten any better for an entire season. So it's like he doesn't have a quarterback coach. So, again, that comes down to coaching. But, again, keeping guys honest is really why I believe, because he can throw that ball deep, is why I believe Blackman is the better quarterback for this game.
All right, of course, the playmakers there, Cam Akers, the Cameron Terry at wide receiver, Akers at running back. And even though the struggles of this offense are there, there's still two guys that can break the game open for the Seminoles.
Yes. Cam Akers is all of that. And the problem is when the offensive line is what offensive line is going to show up.
Yeah.
But if your defensive end gets upfield too much, he's got the ability to be able to see it. His second level vision isn't as good as a Dalvin Cook, so that's why I wouldn't be overly worried. But he's good enough to be able to get you 10, 15 at a time. It's about, will Browse stick to the run, or will he incorporate not arguably your best player on offense more into this game?
And what about Terry, receiver? I mean, it seems like every time I see him, he's breaking some kind of big play.
Yes, and again, it just comes back to, like I was saying, Blackman has an ability to get to him. Almost every quarterback has their favorite receiver. It just doesn't seem like Terry and Hornibrook are on the same page a lot. But when Blackman's there, Terry's very much so a part of the game. But best believe that they're going to try to, I don't care how much better Florida is as a team, I don't think you're that arrogant to not respect the fact that this is an NFL caliber player. So you got to make sure he's got to get involved with 5 to 8 targets, probably 8 targets, at least 5 of them need to be catching. But the slot receivers, it's going to really be up to what can DJ Matthews do, what can Treshaun Harrison do without trying to make Peter Ward type plays, without being a Peter Ward type player, and really can they get the tight end involved in this game. But Terry's got to be able to be a threat, take the top off of defense. Or Graham's just going to blitz the hell out of FSU, and it's going to be a very, very long night.
Yeah, quickly on that part here, and it goes back to the offensive line. You've already brought them up one time, but going into the season, that was probably one of the biggest questions for Florida State because of the kind of the disaster it was last year. You mentioned the quarterbacks progressing kind of this season and not necessarily not seeing it. Have you seen this offensive line progress much during the season as well?
They're too all over the place. When they perform well, it's good. When they don't, they don't. And I think injuries and youth. I do believe the future is bright. This is just not a good game for the future. So, that left side of the line with Washington, Dante Lucas, and with Baselli playing at center, I think that provides you security over there to that left side. The right side, I still have a fear. We got some really friendly guys, and you guys got some killers across that D-line with your transfers and just guys that you guys actually built up through the program. And we couldn't stop Miami. And Miami has good D-line as well, but I think Florida's D-line is much, much better coached, much more violent. And again, with the combination of bringing in blitzes, I think these guys are too young and not strong enough to be able to hold up for 4 quarters against Florida.
How's on the defensive side of the ball? Of course, losing Marvin Wilson. What's kind of been the transition from losing him and kind of replacing his production? That he was well on his way to having a pretty good season for the Noles.
Yeah. I mean, I've played with a broken hand before. Actually, I played with a broken hand against Florida before. It's not fun. The difference though is I don't have to put my pressure. I didn't have to put pressure on the ground like that every time and affect my explosion or my get off like Marv does. But Durden and Cooper are both playing well at times. Cooper is a guy who's a really big guy who's explosive. So when he fires off the ball, he can be unblockable. He's also hard to move. The problem sometimes, like if he doesn't get pushed backwards, then he can have a presence, and that actually opens up things for Durden, who's more of a three technique, more like Marvin. But they kind of all rotate around there. Freshman True Thompson's gonna get some reps. He tries really hard. I think he's in 5 years he'll be a really good player. He's one of those guys that's just gonna go in there, do his job. But right now he's not. He doesn't have anything that really strikes you. So the interior, which was better, was the best part of the defensive line, takes a huge blow with Marvin Wilson. The only thing that kind of helps Florida is that Florida State is that Florida doesn't like to run the ball, so that could help ease some of the pain, or it can make the game longer because you're just going to light up our DBs. But when Cooper and Durden are doing well, they're getting a good push. And I will say where Franks or Emory would be better at is getting that rollout and being able to extend the play with that when that does happen. Trask might make our ends play just a little bit better, but I'm not suggesting that we'll get a ton of sacks because that's just not what's happening this year.
Stats aren't the whole story here, and kind of just looking at where teams rank right now. I mean, I knew Florida State struggled in stopping the pass, but no, I didn't think they were 114th in the nation in pass defense. And with the athletes that you can get in the state of Florida, I mean, what's the issue there? Is it talent, or is it more of a coaching problem, or not getting pressure up front that kind of affects the secondary?
I think all of that. But we'll go back to the coaching. We coach a system that our guys just aren't proficient in. And without going into, this is me asking questions. I play offense, so the defensive stuff, I know how to stop a defense, how to score them. Not necessarily stop a defense, how to score on a defense. When it comes to I ask questions because when I don't know the answers of guys who know more than me. And it's not your traditional man coverage where you just, you're playing press and you're going. It's just whatever the Saban kick slide mess is, which works when you have a bunch of disciplined players and you got guys who fully believe. But what I think is we don't have a bunch of guys who fully believe in the Harlan Barnett system. Rightfully so. Hasn't really worked for them. They don't bring enough pressure because linebackers don't know how to get into their fits. And so what I mean by that is, so when you're bringing a blitz, there's got to be gaps, and your linebackers got to be able to hit the gap, and our guys don't do that very well. You'll see guys in the same pair of britches or in the same gap, and now you leave a hole that's wide open for the quarterback to be able to step into and be able to throw it. It gives them more time. So the secondary is put on these, not only on an island, but they're put on an island and they're not equipped with the adequate tools to be able to defend that. And I think that's where you've seen a lot of teams be able to exploit. And there's a huge lack of communication. And the one thing they do, they just don't trust each other. One thing that I saw, I think it was the Miami game when Sanders got burnt or beat. It looks like he got beat, but maybe he was supposed to have safety help. But you see guys looking at each other, holding up hands while the wide receiver is still running. They're not running to try to tackle the wide receiver. They're looking to who is going to be able to blame. And, that goes to what I feel the major problem of this Taggart coach team, and it spills into the last few years of the Jimbo. There's a lack of accountability and always pointing the finger and looking at whose fault it is, as opposed to imposing your will and trying to just beat down the person in front. That's what good football teams have, and our guys haven't found it yet.
Last question here, James, and of course, you do the sports den here in Jacksonville and on 1010XL 92.5, and you have to talk Gators as well to appease the Jacksonville crowd, and the co-host Denny Thompson as well. More of a Florida background. What's been your thoughts, man, of year two for these Gators under Dan Mullen?
I've always thought that Dan Mullen was a good coach. I didn't like him as a recruiter or a personality. And I'm wrong. And I'm right, but I'm wrong. The best thing you can do when you're a CEO is hire guys who can hide your weakness and let you work on your strength. So what Mullen's done a really good job of is he hired a bunch of guys who can develop, and you brought in a decent class. Don't worry about the bigger classes later on. Let's get these guys and teach them how to win, teach them how to do what I want to do. And that first year was amazing turnaround. Now, a good friend of mine, John Heron, known as Hova to a lot of people, always told me that the 4-7 and the 4-8 teams weren't bad teams.
Yep, told me the same thing.
Got hit with a lot of injuries. And so it changed my mindset. So when Florida fans or FSU fans would say, how are they turning from 4-8 to this? I'm like, well, they were never bad. They just had a lot of injuries. They had talent. The talent was always there. It's just it wasn't able to. When you have key injuries, it will affect you across the board. Or when you don't have a quarterback, like when you went through your Treon Harris years. But he found his quarterback. He developed the quarterback, gave the quarterback confidence with Felipe, and again continued to try to flip the room. Brought in Emory, brought in forgot the young man who got kicked out from Baltimore area.
Jalen Jones, yeah.
Yeah, Jalen Jones brought in Jalen. So you brought in these guys, and the goal was to develop them, keep getting them better. You got a real good one out of Gainesville Eastside with AR-15 Anthony Richardson. And then you just he put a big focus on the offensive line. He brought in 5 guys that first year. I'm a big proponent of winning in the trenches. Even if you don't play those guys, every year you should recruit 4 to 6 offensive line because attrition and competition breed the best offensive line. So he brought in enough linemen, won some head-to-head recruiting battles, and then what he did was after his developers served their purpose, they went on to do other things, and you bring in some better recruiters, like the DB coach from Virginia Tech, real good in that Polk County area. It's just bringing back Hova to help develop relationships and flip coaches to start building that 21 class, 22 class, and really making the game an event. And that's the scary part right now for any FSU fan, is that you're going into a night game at Ben Hill Griffin with 100+ recruits, a blackout. They're going to talk about the new football facility, and you're probably going to get a 40 burger put on you.
You think the blackout rumors are true?
I don't know. I'm not putting it. It could be. It could not be. I'm not predicting. Y'all's fan base kills me when I be making predictions, and I don't do it in spite. I don't know. Sometimes I'm right. I got good information, but I'm saying that Mullen can't win in the living room, but what he can do is put on a show in his, which is the stadium. And to me, having been recruited, that's gonna be dope. It's going to be packed out. I don't know if it's going to be sold out, but there'll be enough people there to where the energy is going to be flowing. They got the facilities. They got some things that guys can really look into. You do a really good job, from what I've seen, of presenting different options and packages to these players. And you can when both really, you guys Miami ain't really a rivalry. It's an in-state thing. Yeah. But when the two traditional powers in the state are down, this is really where he's got to be able to put his foot on the net. And to me, I wouldn't, if they only win by the spread, I'd be disappointed if I was a Florida fan. I'm saying you shouldn't be disappointed. You should be disappointed with a loss. What I mean is this is a good opportunity to, like, whatever momentum that Florida State may drop, if they drop the coaching signing on that Sunday or Monday, you can still have everything be about you if you beat Florida State by 30. If you just outright dismantle. And I think they have the opportunity to do that. I think Mullen is cooking. I was actually talking to a few recruits about the University of Florida and some of the things that they have moving forward, especially in the wide receiver position, because you guys have a void that's coming up. Mm-hmm. But, like, if you can do what you need to do, what's necessary now, the next 2 cycles, y'all should be able to bring in some really good, talented receivers to see how that offense works, because it looks fun.
All right, that is James Coleman giving us a great look at the Florida State Seminoles and a little bit of his thoughts on the Gators as well. As I said, former fullback for the Seminoles, and you can find him on 1010XL 92.5 on the Sports Den here in Jacksonville. James, man, can't thank you enough for all the insight, man.
All right, man, appreciate you.
MyBookie is the place for you because they let you turn all your sports knowledge into cash in your wallet. Between football season, NBA, college basketball season, it's time to get off the sideline and get in on the action at MyBookie. Doesn't matter if you're an experienced player or first-time customer, MyBookie welcomes all to come play. So quit waiting around and sign up today. This week only, MyBookie is offering a risk-free bet on the Bears-Lions game. Simply choose a team against the spread for up to $250. If you win, congrats! You have extra holiday spending money. If you lose, congratulations to you as well. MyBookie will give all your money back. It's a no-brainer because you literally cannot lose. No risk here in the Thanksgiving Day game between the Bears and the Lions. So right now, head to MyBookie, and they'll also match your first deposit by 50% all the way up to $1,000. Use promo code Gators to activate the offer. Visit MyBookie online today at mybookie.ag, mybookie.ag, and don't forget to use promo code Gators when creating your account to claim the bonus. Bet, win, get paid at MyBookie. Here are a few things to look for when the Gators take the field in the 2019 regular season finale Saturday night in the Swamp, 7:30, against the Seminoles. And I think Florida's going to score some points. And if FSU wants to win this game or keep it close, they're going to have to score some points as well. The only way I see Florida State scoring is for running back Cam Akers and wide receiver Tamari and Terry to go off for the Seminoles. The Seminoles rank first in the ACC and tied for third nationally with 9 plays of 60-plus yards, partly because of these two players here. Akers is top 25 nationally in rushing touchdowns, rushing yards per game, all-purpose yards, scoring, total points scored, and total touchdowns. I mean, he's up there in a lot of categories for the Seminoles. He's 6th in the nation with 17 total touchdowns, 9th in the nation in total points scored, also 20th in the country at 104 yards per game there. So, and he's one of 10 players nationally with at least 3 touchdowns in 3 games in 2019. So, overall, the FSU run game isn't strong at all, coming in at 95th in the country in rushing offense with 139.6 yards per game. But Akers still has that ability to break the game open. So, now Florida needs to continue the rush defense that we've seen since the Georgia game. The Gators have only given up an average of 74 rushing yards per game the last 3 games. Now, after the LSU and South Carolina game, where Florida was giving up well over 200 yards a game, only 74 the last 3 games. So, Cam Akers is expected to be available after missing the Alabama State game, FSU's last game a couple weeks ago, with an undisclosed injury. So, it'd be interesting if he's close to 100% there for him coming up Saturday night. And to me, though, even more so, the player that Florida must stop is wide receiver Tamari and Terry. Plainly put, he is explosive. He's averaging an ACC high 20.3 yards per reception and an NCAA best 53.75 yards per touchdown. His touchdown catches of 9 yards, 36 yards, 44, 60, 64, 69, 74, and 75 yards in 2019. And according to ESPN Stats and Info, Terry's 53.75 yards per touchdown reception leads the nation among receivers with at least 8 touchdowns. 5 catches of at least 60 yards are tied for most in the country in 2019, and 7 catches of at least 60 yards in the past 2 seasons are the most nationally in that span. So The last 2 years he's been putting up these type of numbers here. His 5 touchdown receptions of at least 60 yards are the second highest total in the NCAA since at least 2010. Only Biletnikoff Award winner and unanimous All-American D.D. Westbrook has had more, as the Oklahoma receiver posted 6 in 2016. Terry's been very explosive these last 2 seasons, but he only had 3 catches for 78 yards last season. So you have to think FSU will try and force the ball to him on Saturday. We'll see Henderson, we'll see Elam matched up on him as well. But he can take a screen to distance. He can catch balls down the field. He's a complete receiver. But we'll see. He'll have to have a quarterback get him the ball. And you heard James Coleman mention that he thinks that'll be James Blackman lining up under center for the Noles. They've been switching quarterbacks all season. For the first time in a few weeks, though, both Alex Hornibrook and Blackman are expected to be healthy and available. So Odell Hagan says he wasn't ready to say who's going to be the starting quarterback. Quote earlier this week, "We're going to find out who's playing the best in practice. That's who's going to play. Kendall Briles and myself will get together and talk about the situation on the offense that we need to talk about." So, Blackman, the redshirt sophomore, thrown for 1,945 yards, 16 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, while Hornibrook, fifth-year senior to transfer from Wisconsin, 986 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Red zone production on both sides of the ball are a strong suit for Florida State this season. FSU is 30 for 34 in red zone opportunities this year, scoring 25 touchdowns with 5 field goals. The Florida State 73.53 touchdown percentage in the red zone ranks second in the ACC and 15th in FBS. So they're scoring about almost 74% touchdown when they get into the red zone. So, and moving to the other side of the ball, Florida State's defense has only allowed 26 touchdowns on 55 red zone attempts by opponents this season. Touchdown percentage of 47.27%. That ranks second lowest in the ACC and 11th best in the NCAA. So on both sides of the ball, Florida State's pretty strong in the red zone. So something to look out for there when Florida gets into the red zone and when FSU is getting into the red zone on offense as well. Look for Kyle Trask to, I think, have another big day here. He's been hitting on the big throws, averaging 8 yards per pass with 21 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And the Florida passing game has hit at least 200-yard mark in every game with multiple touchdown passes in every game but one. Now, it gets to go against a FSU secondary that just isn't very good, ranking 114th in the nation, giving up 274 yards per game. Now, Florida will be the best passing attack FSU's faced all season besides Clemson. FSU's coming off a game where they only produced 2 sacks versus Alabama State. So as long as Trask has time to throw, Florida will put up big points. Trask, he'll pick this zone defense apart. Surprisingly, FSU, even with the athletes they have, play a lot of zone defense, and maybe because they kind of have to, because we would just where they rank at, not very high in NCAA in passing defense, but playing the zone defense. And Kyle Trask, if he has time, he'll pick that apart all day long. The player to watch for Florida State's defense is junior safety Hamza Nasruddin. Continues to be one of the top tackling defensive backs in the country. Earned his 3rd ACC Defensive Back Player of the Week honors versus Alabama State in their last game. He had 11 tackles and had a pick six, 80-yard pick six as well. It was the first defensive touchdown of his career and the first for Florida State in 2019. So took, just like Florida, it took Florida State a while to get a defensive touchdown, late in the season when Jonathan Grenard had one on the Diabate sack fumble versus Vanderbilt. So Nasruddin also earned Defensive Back of the Week honors after notching 22 tackles at Boston College in the game before last. That's the most for a Seminole player since 1968. So Nasruddin, definitely the player to key in on when the Seminoles are on defense. So, all right, when that's said and done, Saturday night, I see a big victory for the Gators. I don't see FSU being able to hang. I see a 38-13 victory for the Gators. I think this team rides the emotion of senior night early on and jumps out to a big lead and never looks back. With the help of a night game crowd, the defensive front for the Gators will dominate all night long. FSU will hit a big play or two because, let's be honest, that just kind of happens with a Todd Grantham defense. But it will be a dominating performance most of the night. Trask and these wide receivers will have a big day, much like last year. These wide receivers will score on some big plays. And you might even see seniors Jefferson, Swain, Hammond, Cleveland with a touchdown each. I mean, that would be pretty cool for these guys to go out. And as much as I think Florida can pass the ball in FSU, you don't want to force the situation, but it would be cool for these seniors to get a touchdown each in the last game in the swamp. There, Florida will get, and when it's all said and done, as I said, Florida will get their 10th win of the season, and we'll be celebrating Florida getting that 10th win of the season over the hated rivals, FSU, when it's all said and done on Saturday night. Let's take a look around the SEC one final time for the regular season. Of course, on Thanksgiving night, we'll have Ole Miss and Mississippi State at 7:30. Then on Friday, Missouri and Arkansas at 2:30. And at noon, we'll have noon on Saturday, Georgia and Georgia Tech, Louisville and Kentucky, Clemson and South Carolina, all those games at noon. So if you're tailgating or at home, you'll be able to see all those teams play their rivals at noon. That's Georgia, Georgia Tech, Louisville and Kentucky, Clemson, South Carolina. At 3:30, the Iron Bowl, Alabama and Auburn. See if Alabama can continue to win and put themselves in the college football playoff discussion. 4 o'clock, Vanderbilt and Tennessee. We'll see if Tennessee can keep their win streak going here in their late season surge. 7 o'clock, Texas A&M and LSU. And at 7:30, of course, Florida and Florida State to wrap up the Gators season. Oh, it goes by way too fast. Way, way, way too fast. Everybody, thanks for joining me here on this episode. You could probably hear it. I'm a little under the weather. Probably can hear it with the sniffles and the stuffy nose and all that stuff. Hopefully be better by Saturday. I'm sure I will be. Even if I'm not too contagious, I'll be there in Gainesville. Anyway, hopefully I'll have a voice on Saturday. I'll be yelling just like you guys will, ready for this game and beat the hated Seminoles to end the 2019 season. Thanks to James Coleman from the Sports Den for joining me here to preview the Florida State Seminoles. I'm the host of Gators Breakdown, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thanks for listening to this episode of Gators Breakdown.